On the morning after the October hurricane, southeast England lay shattered. Winds of more than 100 miles an hour had left a trail of destruction from the Channel coast to the Wash. England had not experienced anything like it for more than 200 years. In living memory, only the devastation of war could compare. Trees suffered most. In Kent, Surrey and Sussex, about 5 million of them were uprooted and blown down. Some had stood for more than 100 years, but with their roots weakened by heavy rain, they couldn't withstand nature's onslaught. 1/5 of all the timber in the southeast lay flattened. For the electricity supply industry, it was a catastrophe, and southeastern electricity suffered worst of all. 3,000 poles were down, many of them smashed. 700 miles of overhead line lay on the ground, and that put 5,000 miles out of action. The main national grid was damaged very little. It was the local distribution system that was brought down by falling trees. A network that had taken 50 years to build had been destroyed in just a few minutes. 4 million people in the region knew what it was like to live without electric power. For most, it was a passing experience of a few hours. For tens of thousands, it went on for days, even weeks. To give them back the comfort of electricity was the job of an army of dedicated men and women called the Hurricane Force. The first job was to clear the trees so that the linesmen and engineers could reach the damaged lines. More than 100 contractors were called in to augment staff teams. While they got to work, the engineers concentrated on restoring power to those parts of the network that were damaged the least, and within a day, 9 out of 10 customers had been reconnected. But before the rest could be, something like 25,000 faults had to be put right, most of them caused by falling trees.
I found a fir tree on the overhead conductors down in the valley.
Yeah.
I can take it off.
You can,
fine.
yeah, so okay, we'll do that first then, get that off, come back,
Right.
let me know, and then make your way around to the other job, and I'll see you there when I've got these
I'll
lads
come back,
working
let you
here.
know.
Some customers were lucky. Faults that seemed serious turned out to be simpler, and householders advised to expect long delays were delighted to find themselves back on supply.
But that kept your hopes going.
But it seemed to be so easy.
It wasn't.
It wasn't, no. We had a bit of luck, actually.
It wasn't easy. Southeastern Electricity realized at once that the task they faced was beyond their normal resources, even though their total engineering staff of more than 4,000 was immediately mobilized on an emergency basis. To do the job, the Hurricane Force was mustered from all parts of the British Isles. Soon the familiar Seeboard sign was joined by the symbols of the CEGB and all the regional boards, and from Ireland. Their vans brought supplies and equipment, and above all their skilled workers, 2,500 of them, speaking with the accents of the West Country and Wales, the Midlands and the North, Scotland and Ireland. The seafront at Brighton became an overnight parking area for the vehicles of the volunteer reinforcements. From here, the dawn patrol set off every day for the forests and farms where power lines needed attention to restore supplies. Breakfast at dawn. Office staff lend a hand in the canteen at Seeboard's divisional headquarters at Crawley. The guests are a detachment of the Green Jackets, some of the hundreds of soldiers who were willingly drafted into the Hurricane Force. Their destination is a forest area near Haywards Heath, and their task is to clear the fallen trees and debris from the stricken power lines. A few miles away, a unit of Gurkhas stationed at Aldershot have a similar task, giving cause to unsheath their traditional kukris to hack at the undergrowth, much as they would in jungle warfare. Meanwhile, the teams of engineers and linesmen were deployed throughout the region to repair the power lines. A team from Yorkshire, typical of hundreds gathered from across the nation, were allocated an area near Cuckfield in Sussex. For all, it was a steady slog from dawn to dusk and beyond. The men with long experience had faced similar problems before, but never on this scale. This time, in the fading afternoon, the Yorkshiremen struck lucky. Power was amazingly still flowing, and a new fuse did the trick.
Is that a good throw?
But for Charles Farley and his team, it hadn't been easy going all the way.
Well, yesterday we started rebuilding the low voltage feed along this main road here, which is the Staplefield through to Cuckfield Road. And it's completely demolished from the end at Staplefield through to Cuckfield, which is approximately 3 miles. For 2 days' work nearly, we've only managed to get on 20 people, but it's been total commitment, and we've had to rebuild fully. About this section that we've got on would be about 30 spans of low voltage line, with several poles just smashed and needing replacement.
Helicopters proved invaluable. The industry's own small fleet was heavily supplemented from private companies. They were ideal for spotting problem areas and were the only means of carrying personnel and equipment to and from inaccessible locations. Where roads were blocked by fallen trees, the helicopter could do the job. The logistical problems for the storekeepers throughout the board were tremendous. They worked round the clock to keep the men in the field supplied. In a week and a half, South Eastern Electricity used as much material as they'd normally use in a year and a half. Factories worked overtime to meet demand, other regional boards helped out from their stocks, supplies were imported from Europe, Ireland, and even America. 50,000 fuses were needed, 4 years' normal supply. 700 miles of overhead line. Plus several hundred transformers of various types and capacities. And more than 3,000 wooden poles. Emergency inquiry centres were set up in divisional offices to deal with calls from customers. Well over 100,000 calls were received.
Which area do you live in, please?
Where do you live, sir? Bolney. Yes, can you give me the full address, sir?
Have you got overhead cables in your property?
If you'd just like to hold on a minute, I'll see if we are in the area.
We are in the area, so it'll be definitely either today or tomorrow.
No, sir, what we're doing is starting at the substation and working forwards. Now, we have to get those supplies on because they're the ones that are obviously feeding yours. Yes, sir, and then what we do is then move on to the next area. You see, we've got such a large area, we're doing the south of the area and then the north of the area, then we come back to the south to give everybody a fair crack of the whip.
Effingham Road out of Copthorne, where a coach brought down some more parts of a tree onto the overhead lines and they had to go back to that. Whether they're continuing with that repair just to get it finished, I don't know, but I feel sure they're going to get you sorted out today.
Maintaining a link between the men in the field and the customers was a vital role. So was the job of ordering the equipment to keep the operational teams supplied. The engineers manning the telephones, like all the office staff, worked 18 hours a day or more, snatching a few hours sleep between shifts.
Are your lads dealing with pig down? Would you know? Could you confirm? Pig down at Haver.
Then there was the job of finding accommodation for the men from the other area boards.
Windsor House Hotel. Can you tell me if you've got any accommodation for tonight? We've got another engineer staying for an indefinite period. You can do that. That's fine. I'll send him along later on. His name is Jerry Amblin.
At another office in Hove, staff were responsible for deploying the teams in the field.
So we've got the HV rebuild we want to put in here, so the rest of the Norweb guys and the MEB chaps are in for tying up. So we've got a number of services. We've got notification that since the radio communication thing went out, the MEB chaps in here, we're working in ditching, so we're quite right as per the ticket, so we can rearrange that. Yeah.
The Central Control Office monitored progress and planned the overall strategy.
456 Hyde Square. Yeah. Yeah. Priory Field 443. Yeah. Lamley's Barn 95. Long Furlong Waterworks, single phase service down. What's the number? 148. 148.
The Information Office was responsible for keeping the press, radio and television abreast of the situation, a task that was vital to help the customer relations staff in divisions foster the goodwill of the public.
We're hopeful that all of the customers in the Kent area will have their supply reconnected by the end of the week.
And the customers, realising that this was a freak situation, soon learned to improvise. No need to miss the news on television if there's a car battery handy.
It's been a busy weekend for thousands of Wall Street workers. They were at their desks all day Saturday and Sunday.
We've managed, we've learned to adapt, because I was born and bred in the country anyway, so, we cope quite well.
And for some, dining by candlelight is never a hardship. To help customers bereft of electricity, South Eastern electricity representatives like Gordon Taylor toured the hardest hit areas distributing torches and batteries, a practical gesture that was well received by those in need.
Well, it's something to try and offer them a little bit of light in this situation, and it's going down very well indeed, where we're finding that people are genuinely without light or anything, especially the older people that need torches and things to see the way around the house at night. So far, our customers have been wonderful. They really have. I have seen nobody yet, since I've been doing this job and out on the road, that really has given me a hard time.
There must be a lot of elderly people that would, really welcome them, but it is a very good idea, yes.
I mean, you've got to rely on that sort of thing. I mean, with no electricity, and then the candle isn't the safest thing. You can read by a battery, with a battery torch, but you can't read by a candle. Well, it's not safe.
It was necessary to draw up priorities for the areas needing attention.
We're luckier than most people around here because we have got an Arga, so we've got cooking facilities and we've got hot water, but because we've no light, no power, being a working person, it's impossible trying to keep the home going without our usual kitchen machinery.
Electricity board came Saturday and delivered a letter apologising for the inconvenience, and they said due to the low priority area that would probably be another week before we had power again.
The strategy was explained by the board's deputy chairman, David Lovesey.
Our number one priority is getting everyone back on supply. When the storm hit us, we had something like 1.5 million customers off supply. That's 4 million people. And ever since then, we've been working day and night to get people back on supply. And we now have something just less than 30,000 customers to get back on supply. As you get down to look at individual services, you find that there are literally dozens of trees lying across our power lines, and we've got to clear each one of those off before we can get the supply back to individual customers.
And in the field, where workers came into contact with customers, a heartening spirit of understanding prevailed.
Yes, we're all right.
Relentlessly, the gruelling slog continued as one pole after another had to be climbed and mile after mile of overhead cable freed from trees or replaced. But progress was steady, and by the end of the first week, the number of customers without power was drastically reduced. The unusual style of climbing irons used by the Irish contingent caused much comment among their English colleagues, but they certainly did the job. Even in normal conditions, line maintenance is dangerous work. For the hurricane force, it was particularly hazardous because of the risk from unstable trees. Safety had to be given top priority, however much the temptation to take risks to save time. A farmhouse in Sussex has lost its power because a pole has snapped. To restore the supply is a time-consuming job, typical of hundreds throughout the board. Farms felt the loss of power more than most and kept the repair teams busy for long hours in isolated areas where it was necessary to be self-sufficient. One of the charge hands with the line crews was Richard Burgess.
Yeah, they've worked from 7 o'clock in the morning right through till midnight. They've hardly stopped for their dinner. They've had 10 minutes, sandwiches brought out to them. They just carry straight on. And weather conditions, the fields have been absolutely atrocious.
Such was the demand for equipment that even damaged units were brought in from other areas and repaired before being pressed into service. A transformer with broken insulators could soon be made as good as new, and the ingenuity of maintenance engineers was exploited in many other ways to eke out the supplies. Seeboard crews, of course, were at the heart of the hurricane force and continued to work flat out even after power had been restored to all customers and the crews from other areas had gone home. To restore supplies as soon as possible, much of the repair work had to be done on a temporary basis. When it was all over, it was estimated that it would take another 6 months, working through the winter, to bring the network to its normal, pristine condition. Perhaps the most formidable task facing the hurricane force was replacing the 3,000 poles destroyed or blown down. To have done that in a little more than 2 weeks was a magnificent achievement, a measure of the dedication and unstinting effort of the 8,000-strong army that came together to fight the ravages of the October hurricane. It took 50 years to build, minutes to destroy, 2 weeks to restore. It wasn't easy, but it was done.
On the board for 23 years. We've been out lots of storms in our area. We've worked for probably a week, but nothing like this, never. I've never seen it like it. I don't expect anybody else.
And as the hurricane force worked into the night, there was the satisfaction of making the connection that brought light back to someone.